Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the 161st Read Show. My name is Joe Esposito, your host. Before we get into today's topics, please like and subscribe to this video. Also, leave your thoughts in the comments down below. So, just wanted to go over some spring training updates. We're about a week in now, so I feel like it'd be a good time to let some things happen, see where the chips kind of fell in the first week, and then go from there. So, first topic in today's video is Luis Heel. Luis Heel has continued to struggle with velocity and generating whiffs. That's obviously the biggest concern we had from him going from his AL Rookie of the Year campaign in 2024 to this past season in 2025 after he came back from his high grade lat strain in about August. A lot of people got a little, I want to say, tricked by Luis Hill's results. His counting stats are very good in 2025. However, if you looked at the underlying data, it wasn't really very good. There was a lot of signs of regression, and I think you saw some of that in the postseason. Obviously, he got in his one outing, was getting hit pretty hard. He loses the strike zone, he doesn't get whiffs, and obviously the Toronto Blue Jays were just about the worst matchup that a pitcher like Luis Hill at that time could get. So that's definitely something to keep an eye on. I am losing faith little by little that Luis Hill is actually even going to make the rotation out of spring. I mean, I'll get into the few other people as to the reason why I think Luis Hill obviously won't make the rotation. He's got some stiff competition, and then people are performing well that were technically in the pecking order behind him at the start of spring. But if he keeps this up, I think the Yankees may, have no choice, and they may have to look at other options like moving into the bullpen or even potentially sending him down to AAA to start the season. I'm not sure if he has any options left. That would be dependent on if that his option is on the table or not. But moving on from Luis Hill, get into the hot topic in Yankee spring training, who's been kind of the hot topic since it started, ever since he painted Aaron Judge on a 102.6 mile per hour fastball in live BP a few weeks ago. Carlos LaGrange has been absolutely dominating. His velocity is next level. I saw a very interesting tweet from Ryan Garcia of Empire Sports Media that Carlos LaGrange actually has the second most four-seam fastballs over 100 miles per hour, only second to Mason Miller, who's obviously, just about the best velocity reliever in all of baseball. And for LaGrange to be doing that as a starting pitcher is absolutely crazy. I really do think there is an outside track for LaGrange to make the rotation out of spring training. As I mentioned, Luis Hill is struggling. Rodon and Cole are still not obviously going to start the season with the team. So there definitely is, an opportunity for that spot if Luis Hill continues to falter for one of these guys to kind of pick it and take it away from him. So I'm excited to see what Carlos continues to do for the rest of spring training. Moving on to another guy that is fighting for that roster spot with Luis Hill is Elmer Rodriguez. He's looked very, very good so far this spring. Obviously, a little bit different than Carlos LaGrange, whereas Carlos is dominating. Elmer has just looked solid. Like he's just looked like a solid MLB starting pitcher. He's thrown a mix of I believe 6 pitches throughout the spring training. I really do think he has the safest floor if you're ranking LaGrange and Elmer. LaGrange is that enticing high end prospect where he could be, a number one, a number two, super exciting. Whereas Elmer, I'm not sure if I see the number one, number two potential. It's definitely there. He's definitely, I don't want to discredit Elmer but just Carlos obviously has that velocity that, isn't teachable, unfortunately. But Elmer, I mean, his floor is like a 4 to 5 MLB starting pitcher. And, teams need starting pitcher. Like teams pay a premium to get fourth and fifth starters that can be the inning eater. And I don't think he's just like your typical innings eater. I think he's gonna be very solid. Like a MLB average ERA is definitely doable for Elmer. And that's obviously low end. High end, obviously, he could definitely be, maybe a low end 2, high end 3 type of guy, just depending on where his stuff goes. But I really like Elmer. I definitely think he has a lot of potential to make the team. Like I said, if Luis Hill continues to falter, wouldn't be surprised if the Yankees say, okay, I would rather get LaGrange some more time in AAA, but Elmer's pitchability, he's going to be, he's going to come up here and do his job. I would not be surprised if that is the way the organization thought. Moving on to Ryan Weathers, he was thrown one outing so far this spring. He looked great. Great, great, great. I was very impressed with Ryan Weathers. Obviously, we've heard about the potential, heard about, him changing his pitch mix up when coming to the Yankees. Obviously, he mentioned an interview with Jack Curry back when in the Yankees traded for him that he had already discussions with Matt Blake. And, there was definitely some things that they could work on that like change up the usage and all that kind of stuff. He threw his two hardest four seam fastballs of his career at 99. I was like, believe it was like point 0.7 or zero point 0.8 miles per hour. And as I mentioned, the noticeable change in Arsenal, he's had a huge uptick in his sweeper, his slider, and his sinker. And that coincided with a huge decrease in his four seam fastball. As I mentioned, he just threw the hardest pitches. His four seam fastball was kind of getting hit around last year. So he added the sinker as another variation of a fastball, along with making, and overall will make his four seam fastball more effective, throwing it less often, and obviously having the sinker to play off of it. Paul Blackburn continued his late season run with the Yankees into his, first couple spring training outings. He's looked very good so far. There's nothing too much to say about him. Like I said, that all the things I've ever seen with the Yankees, I wrote an article about in the offseason. His sinker looked more effective, cutter looked more effective. His throwing his pitches faster is definitely just an overall, looks like Paul Blackburn is safely going to make this bullpen. I think he looks good. So I'm excited to see where that goes. Tim Hill has, completely revamped his slider. So he's now getting more vertical break and generating more spin on it. So it's a complete different variation of pitch. So he's throwing it like his fastball last year, I believe, averaged like 84 to 85 miles per hour. Now this slider that he's debuted so far in the spring trade is averaging like 7 to 78 miles per hour. So completely different variation of pitch. I'm excited to see what it looks like. His slider wasn't a super helpful tool. If he has something to play off of that sinker that obviously generates a high ground ball rate, where he can get a few more whiffs in certain situations, he can break it out. That would obviously be great, make Tim Hill a lot more effective after he was already greatly effective so far in his Yankee tenure. Jake Bird looks very, very good so far this spring training. He's added almost a mile per hour onto his sinker, and both his sinker and sweeper are generating more spin and horizontal break. So very good to see Jake Bird bouncing back after he was traded to the Yankees at the trade deadline from the Colorado Rockies. He was really faltering. It looked like he just couldn't get comfortable. It was a mess. It was a mess. The Yankees sent him down to AAA, and even then in AAA, he wasn't looking too good. So very happy to see that, he worked on it on the offseason, and it's starting to turn around and look a lot better for him. Moving on to the hitting side, the Yankees signed Rancho Grichuk. They gave him a minor league invite to spring training. Obviously, if he makes the team, I think he makes about like 2.5 million, something in that ballpark. Great. Obviously, hitting left-handed pitching. This is, unfortunate news, even more so for both Jason Dominguez and Spencer Jones, as it obviously takes away likely a roster spot from them as the fourth outfielder on the bench. I think the Yankees had to sign, a lefty manager in the outfield. They needed it. Trent Grisham was very poor last year against left-handed pitching. Obviously, Cody Bellinger did quite well. So definitely will be good to see how Randall Grichuk performs and see if he can make the team. I mean, as long as he's hitting left-handed pitching up to his capabilities, his standards, I don't see any reason how he doesn't make the team. Spencer Jones, speaking of him, is living up to his name of being the Joey Gallo archetype of the three true outcomes. He is crushing the ball when he makes contact. He's striking out and he's walking. I mean, that's just Spencer Jones in a nutshell. Very happy to see that, he's had 3 home runs already. Obviously, with 3 absolute mammoth home runs, all of them. If he makes contact, the ball is just getting absolutely annihilated. But definitely still have concerns of his MLB viability with his zone contact being so poor and him obviously swinging and missing so often. Jason Dominguez also has looked very good so far this spring. One thing I do want to keep an eye on that I am noticing is, again, small sample size. He does have 5 strikeouts and 12 plate appearances. Again, I'm not going to read too much into that just because it is spring training. Just like pitchers kind of experiment, do new things, hitters do the same thing. So I don't want to hold it against him that he's done that. He could be trying a new approach, new swing path, all those kind of things. So definitely just something to keep an eye on, something to monitor and see where that kind of falls as spring training kind of keeps moving along. So to no one's surprise, George Lombard Jr. has been an absolute beast in the field. He gets to everything. He makes every play. It is absolutely crazy. Like Anthony Volpe in 2024 was an amazing defender. Obviously, Gold Glove, well deserved, and that season compared to where George Lombard Jr. he just pales in comparison. Obviously, Volpe doesn't have the arm strength that Lombard has. That obviously gives him a huge leg up. And then his range is amazing. He just is a great fielder. There's just no other way to put it. He also made a change to his batting stance, and he's hitting the ball very hard this spring so far. So definitely exciting to see, him taking the next steps. I know that people's general concerns were his hitting capabilities after this past season. He didn't do bad. His first half was not great, but his second half was a lot better. And then, it's looked like he's made some even more alterations to, get better results so far this spring. So we'll keep an eye on that, see how he's progressing in the minor leagues. And then another person that made a batting stance change was Ryan McMahon. He closed off his stance a lot more. He said that he was watching a lot of film in the offseason of Ben Rice and Bryce Harper to kind of, I guess, get a better sense of where he should position his feet. And then obviously to try to help him make more contact. He was obviously a huge strikeout guy this past season. So definitely, I think the Yankees were trying to get him to make more contact, obviously without, hindering his capabilities of, making hard contact. So something to keep an eye on. The early results aren't particularly amazing or anything to write home about. So just something to keep an eye on. Paul Goldschmidt so far has looked very impressive, especially against right-handed pitching, but it's nothing like Paul Goldschmidt, could win the everyday first base job. It doesn't look 100% translatable just because the talent of right-handed pitching he's been up against when he's been hitting hasn't been like amazing. It's not like he's hitting against like upper echelon right-handed pitching and driving the ball to the ballpark. You don't want to take it away from him, but just again something to keep an eye on, something to monitor, see where that kind of is falling as the spring training goes on. Cody Bellinger hasn't been playing the past few days. Aaron Boone did say he's dealing with some back issues, something that he was dealing with also last season. He does expect him to return to the lineup on Tuesday. Again, something to keep an eye on. Uh, and speaking of injury issues, Giancarlo Stanton is also expected to make his spring training debut on Tuesday, also according to Boone. Randy Miller came out with an article this past week with a quote from Stan saying essentially, he can't open a bag of chips, he can't open a bottle, and that's just how it is. I think, it's not that it wasn't meant to be how it kind of came across. Randy Miller has been a reporter that hasn't always been the best. I feel like he puts players in weird positions where, he takes them out of context or whatever. I know Clint Frazier was a player that had a lot of issues with him. I remember he had a weird interview with George Lombuncher Jr. in the offseason saying something like asking him a question, are you prepared to like unseat Anthony Volpe as a starting shortstop? Just a weird question to ask like a 20-year-old. Like that's a guy that, he's going to be around. Could be even a potential teammate. You don't want to, say something crazy like, oh yeah, like I'm just going to destroy Anthony Volpe. He's terrible. Like he was kind of just putting him in a impossible position to answer that question. So I take the Randy Miller report with a grain of salt. But though that is pretty much all of the updates so far to Yankee spring training camp. Like I said, they have about a week of games under their belt. Definitely the main takeaways from this video to keep an eye on Luis Hill, see if his velocity peaks back up and he starts generating whiffs again, and then see if Carlos LaGrange and Elmer Rodriguez are, going from just, guys getting some innings in camp and getting ready for their seasons, or someone that can potentially steal the fifth starting spot away from Luis Hill. I definitely think it's on the table. It would be kind of crazy, but I definitely don't think it's out of the question how he'll perform last season and then how he started off spring training. And then obviously also keep an eye on Cody Bellinger and Giancarlo Stanton because Bellinger with the back issues, Stanton with the obviously elbows that apparently are cooked. So nothing new here, but thank you guys so much for tuning in today's video. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, like and subscribe, leave your thoughts down below, and I'll see you all in the next one. Let's go Yankees.